He is our Commonwealth attorney. Welcome, Lewis Kelly.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everyone, for having me out tonight. So, as Greg said, my name is Lewis Kelly. I am the Commonwealth's attorney for Boone and Gallatin County, which is the 54th Judicial Circuit. And some of you may be wondering the same thing when I was campaigning and I would introduce myself. They would say, what's the Commonwealth's attorney? So the Commonwealth's attorney is the chief felony prosecutor for Boone and Gallatin County. So in some states they call it the district attorney, some states they call it the state's attorney or the county prosecutor. That's what they call it in Ohio. Because we are a Commonwealth, it's called the Commonwealth's attorney. So I've got some stats here, but there's just a few things I wanted to talk about. So for those who don't know, felonies are basically any crime that carries with it at least a year in prison, going all the way up to life in prison or the death penalty. So do we have any music fans here? Yeah, we got a couple. Anyone here Billy Streams? He's got that song, Dust in a Baggie. You ever heard that? So my office deals with a little dust in a baggie of methamphetamine up to and including the death penalty for murder and everything in between. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit today. I've got some stats here. I'm going to tell you about what's been going on in the 54th Judicial Circuit. But I also just wanted to talk a little bit about why this office and the policy choices we make matter to you. A couple years ago, for the first time in my life, I did a little bucket list. I went to Redwood National Forest, which is something I've always wanted to see, and I flew into San Francisco. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to San Francisco, but I just want to tell you, just like from just a atmosphere, climate, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. Right? The San Francisco Bay, it was in the middle of July, and it was 70 degrees. It was the bluest sky I'd ever seen. It had these beautiful hills and the row houses. And that place, they've turned this paradise, and they've ruined it. And there's a lot of people that are responsible for ruining that paradise. I point at the governor, I point at their state legislature, I point at their city leadership, but at its nadir, at its lowest point, the person, and it's a little better now than it was, but at its worst point, which was around 2020 and 2021, it was a hellscape, and I put mainly that at the district attorney, this guy named Chase Boudin, essentially my counterpart there. Because he said, because he was a progressive politician, he said, in the name of social justice and racial equity, we are not going to prosecute drug cases. We're not going to prosecute theft cases. You think I'm being hyperbolic? You should look it up. It was true. And within days, this paradise, you couldn't walk down the sidewalk without people openly using drugs. Human feces on the ground. You couldn't go to a CVS or a Rite Aid and get something. They had to barricade everything up because people would just come in and steal things because they wouldn't prosecute. It happened almost overnight. And so that was just a giant wake-up call to me. Now, I've never been interested in pursuing social justice through criminal, but it was amazing to me how fast the community deteriorated. And so that's why criminal prosecution, beyond just holding people accountable for what they do, it's important because people react to incentives. My colleague Jordan Turner's over here. She also is a criminal prosecutor. She prosecutes misdemeanors. If we did a joint press conference tomorrow and said, in the name of social justice, I am no longer going to prosecute drug possession, or I'm no longer going to prosecute thefts under $1,000, I submit to you it would not take very long till our streets would be a hellscape like it was in San Francisco in 2021 and 20. They actually recalled it. That's how bad it was in San Francisco. The most liberal place on the planet recalled their district attorney because of these crazy policies. So first of all, I want to make my representation and promise to you that as long as I'm Commonwealth's attorney, that will never happen in Boone and Gallatin counties, ever. But I want to tell you about some of the things I'm trying to do because I think incentives work in both ways. Yes, if I tell people that you can use drugs, people will come here to do drugs, but we can do things that maybe stop that, or maybe let people think twice. In the 54th Judicial Circuit in Boone County, we were the first circuit to prosecute people for homicides if someone died from a drug overdose that they sold. I certainly do not want to take all the credit for this. In fact, the most credit should go to the Boone County Sheriff's Office. They had this proactive team. You know, before it would be 911 gets a call, someone's overdosed, they go, man, that's a tragedy. Boone County Sheriff's Office didn't do it. They went in, they had a special group called the Crime Suppression Unit. They came and they immediately, well, I'm not going to explain the tactics because that's a trade secret. But the bottom line is they came up to me a few years ago and they said, because in 2023, we had 6 overdose deaths from fentanyl. Maybe that doesn't seem a lot to you, but I think in a community like this, that is a staggering and horrific number. And they came to me and they go, hey, we know who sold them this drugs. We found out. Said, we could charge them with trafficking. I said, let's do one better. Let's charge them with homicide. So we started doing that in Boone County. And you know what we did? We started hearing, because we listened to the jail calls. They even have little data terminals in jails. If it were up to me, I would give free, unlimited data to all inmates because we read it all, and it's a treasure trove of information. To my General Assembly members, let's do it. Let's give them free data so we can just monitor. But we listen to their calls. They have these little terminals, they call them chirps. We read them, and we've seen them. They go, what are you doing? I told you not to come here. You see what they do. In 2023, we had 6 overdose deaths to fentanyl. In 2024, we had 2. It's October 20th, 2025, and as of right now, we have 0. So some of the other things we try to do. A big issue is organized retail theft. These people, they get together and they just go up and down 75 or 64 or 71, multiple states, learning how different places their loss prevention works and hitting multiple places. But they don't do it themselves. What they'll do is, because generally speaking, the way prosecution would normally work is, if it's your first time and you've never had an offense and you stole something, well, if you just pay the restitution, you may not have to go to prison if you pay it back or give the equipment back. So what they would do is they would just deal with, they would pay people who didn't have a criminal record to go steal for them. And they say, if you get caught, we'll just pay your restitution. Well, we found out about that. So what do we do now? If we have evidence that you were part of an organized retail theft, I don't care if it's your first time and you've never had a parking ticket, we're going to throw the book at you and you're going to serve time in prison. We have Mall Road in Houston. It's a big target for organized retail theft. Ulta Beauty, any of you guys go there? That place needs its own personal detail because you can steal $10,000 worth of merchandise in a bag that's like this big. If you steal from Ulta Beauty and we find your organized retail theft, we're going after you. That rallies was, I had one defendant who was selling drugs from there involved a shooting because of that. So we actually called the corporate office. They shut that rallies down, fired everyone there, and we said, look, you're going to have cops there 24/7, and we're going to send everyone to prison there who does it. If they don't clean it up, they change their thing. It's chilled out. We find these incentives work, right? One thing I've partnered with Jordan is juveniles committing crimes. This is another thing. Sometimes they do it on their own accord. Sometimes adults will send juveniles to commit very heinous crimes because they say, well, they'll go easy on them because they're juveniles. They won't have to do anything. So, Jordan's office, if they're involved in violent crimes, because we're talking carjackings, we're talking robbery at gunpoint, we're talking drug deals in which there's shootings involved. Jordan's office has been very aggressive about setting those up, trying those individuals adults. I have 2 individuals from Cincinnati who came across the river, robbed a woman over by the Hebron Grill at gunpoint, stole her vehicle, took her car and her wallet, and went around driving. Those two individuals just pled guilty last month and are currently serving 15 years in prison. The whole point is that not only do we think that was warranted because of the circumstances, we're hoping that people will hear. Hey, you want to go down to Hebron? Maybe not. You know, maybe I'll think twice about crossing the river. Or if I do cross that river, I'm not going to go to Boone. Right? So we are trying to use the policy that will incentivize people to not commit these, not come over here. So I want to give you a little bit about our statistics, and then certainly if anyone has any questions. But as of this year, and I keep my stats on every guilty plea, if anyone ever wants to call my office and talk to me, I can tell you, I know I have a lot of county and city officials here. I will often go there and give stats, but I keep them up on a day-to-day basis, so this is accurate as today. So this counts Boone and Gallatin, but you could probably guess 80% of these would apply to Boone. But I did not segregate them for today's presentation. But this year we have 756 convictions that my office has secured. Of those, 277 were for possession of a controlled substance. That's the dust in the bag you talk about. It's amazing how drugs kind of go up and down in terms of what is the numbers stay pretty consistent. What the drugs are changes. When I first came, it was all heroin. Now it is all methamphetamine, right? We rarely see heroin. Fentanyl became a huge thing, and then as our General Assembly members who are here really passed some tougher laws cracking down on fentanyl use, that is changing. Interestingly, cocaine is now coming back up. We are seeing a lot of cocaine and crack cocaine. That's probably our second biggest right now. But methamphetamine stays kind of our top drug. I will say, for drug possession, we try to be pragmatic. You know, the old days of saying drugs were something that the guys on the bad side of town did, those days are kind of gone. And if you have a family where substance abuse and drugs has not affected your family, God bless you, but you are the exception, not the rule. Generally speaking, if it's your first offense, or if we've had a long protracted period between offenses, and you are willing to try treatment, we will generally give you that opportunity. But if you're not going to try treatment, some places they always probate them, or in some places like Jefferson, they make it a misdemeanor. We don't do that. We will allow you to do treatment, but if you have multiple offenses in a row, or we put you in treatment and you just completely wash out, you're going to serve a year in prison. We've probably given more, I would say we've probably given more prison time for possession cases than any other jurisdiction of our size in the Commonwealth. Because we just say, look, if we're going to give you the opportunity to do treatment, we mean it. But we do try to do that. For drug trafficking, we had 58 cases total. Actually, while we do have a decent amount of methamphetamine trafficking, our biggest trafficking cases come out of the airport, and it's marijuana. People bringing in marijuana from places like California and Colorado. And even if they legalize it, I don't think that's going to change because they grow so much marijuana and they can only sell so much that they're constantly, the black market will always be there. So that's a huge issue at the CBGs, the marijuana that's brought in. We have had 160 theft cases. Our wanton endangerment or assault, we've had 95. We've had 14 burglary or robbery cases. We've had 10 cases of strangulation, 3 cases of rape, 2 cases of child pornography. We have several pending, those are convictions. We have several pending child pornography cases. It will shock you. People in your neighborhood, people you work with, the internet and the access to it. I don't know, it's hard to say how much is getting through as opposed to what we're catching, but our law enforcement is getting much more sophisticated in catching them. We've been given a lot more tools to really prosecute them and put them away, but that is just a huge scourge, is the online pornography, especially of young children. It's a horrific thing. Sexual and criminal abuse, we've prosecuted 5 of those. And we have prosecuted 4 reckless homicides and 1 manslaughter second degree, including both of the 2 overdose deaths that I talked about in 2024 were resolved this year. I'm short on time. It's just real quickly, any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, question for you. What's your stand, or how does this work? Let's just say a man entered a woman's bathroom at, let's say,
Pretending to be a woman.
Planet Fitness. What can we do?
Off the top of my head, it's hard to think. I know exposing someone to genitalia, that is a crime.
Okay.
Exposing to male genitalia. And certainly, if any of the people in that restroom were to tell me that a man exposed themselves, we had a case, in fact, back behind in that office park in Fort Bank, we had a guy who came and exposed himself to the public defender's office. He was actually a client of the public defenders. We prosecuted him. I don't see why we wouldn't prosecute the same under that situation. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Outside of what you mentioned at the airport, what's the overall thought process behind marijuana? And I can't imagine it's all medicinal, that it's no influence.
His question was just about what's the current status with marijuana. So that's obviously a moving target. In fact, a lot of our law enforcement has they've been asking me, should we still train dogs on marijuana? It's tough. Right now in Kentucky, we have legal medicinal THC, but it is, and marijuana, but it's generally supposed to be smokeless unless you're growing it yourselves. So I still think there is going to be a black market. I've told my staff, until they say that it's okay to smoke a joint inside a car, you should still train our dogs for marijuana. Marijuana is, it's very rare. I don't prosecute just possession of marijuana cases. Jordan's office does that, but we find marijuana. We smell the odor of marijuana. The cops search the car. They find methamphetamine, and so that's something I'm very concerned about. Is if they don't allow us to use the odor of marijuana as to give you a probable cause to search a vehicle. As of right now, we can. We're going to find hard to keep it that way, but that's something I'm really concerned about, because one of the easiest ways that we have probable cause to find harder drugs is the cops pull over someone for speeding and marijuana is bellowing out of the car. Personally, I don't think it's good public policy to have the open marijuana around. I think people should be able to go downtown and not have it punching them right in the face. I took a group of kids from my church to go see the Blink, the light show in Cincinnati, and they all came home smelling like marijuana because we were in downtown Cincinnati for an hour and a half. I've got a real issue with that, but yeah, that's kind of where we are. Yes, sir.
DUIs, for example, have a limit of 0.08 on alcohol. Has there been any kind of discussion on what the driving under the influence for marijuana would be at this point?
Boy, if I had the answer to that, I'd be. That is a huge issue. So Jordan Turns, I will prosecute DUIs. A fourth offense is a felony. That's when it comes to me. Or sometimes we will have, for instance, it's a DUI and they find methamphetamine in their car, and then I'll prosecute it. Jordan's really, her office is more the DUI expert. That's a huge issue, because alcohol and even methamphetamine really only stays in your system for so long, so that if you find it, they can make a reasonable judgment as to whether or not you're under the influence. Marijuana does not. Marijuana, you can smoke it right now and go take a test in 3 days, stone cold sober, and the marijuana will show up in your system. We really need to find a per se limit, which is what you're talking about, for marijuana. I think it's critical because also the marijuana that people are smoking now is like weapons grade marijuana, and it is just as potent as any alcohol or any other controlled substance. So I don't have an answer for you. Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have a per se at this time.
Our association, we push hard on this every session to try to get a per se limit, but there's just so much complexity involved with marijuana because of the shelf life. There's a lot of conflicting evidence about when it's intoxicating for people, but that's a huge issue for county attorneys that is near and dear to us. So I appreciate that.
And it's not something that we can just arbitrarily set because of the way our court system is. It has to be scientifically sound.
Like alcohol is pretty black and white, 0.08.
Right, correct. But again, it was because
THC levels, you've got some sort of black and white measurement as well.
well, we're trying to. The problem is proving that number equates to impairment, as opposed to just saying that you've done it 2 or 3 days in the past. It's an incredibly complex, I agree, we need it really bad. I just don't quite have I don't think we have an answer yet. Yes, ma'am.
For the good work that you're doing and really minimizing or mitigating all these issues that you had addressed, are you sharing this information with other Commonwealth attorneys like McKinney County and Campbell County and so forth? I mean, I'm so blessed that I'm in Boone County, but I would like this to go further in the other counties also.
Well, thank you for your kind words. The answer is yes. We gave a presentation, the sheriff's office and my office, we spoke to our statewide group about this, and then afterwards, Bowling Green, Pikeville, and Central Kentucky, Clark County, their felony prosecutors and their law enforcement asked us to go, and so we've done even more in-depth training. So we've actually gone across the state to teach the techniques, and I know at least in Bowling Green they have convicted people for homicides for the trafficking based on some of these. Here's the one thing I will say. One of the things I sometimes take for granted is I live in a community where the people here share my passion and understand the importance for the rule of law. That's what Greg and everybody else was talking about with these meetings. If we start getting city leaders or county leaders that don't care about it, or a citizenry that doesn't, these things can change real quick, right? So this is all part and parcel. So thank you guys. It's an honor for me to serve this community and to know that when we do these policies, that this is what our citizens want. And so thank you very much. Thank you, Greg, for inviting me to speak. I appreciate it. Thank you.